Hi, I'm Ray McBerry. I'm the pastor at Pinnacle Baptist Church. I'd like to say thank you to the thousands of people that have watched our series on Biblical Cosmology that we put on YouTube a few months back. We actually did the series in our church a little over a year ago, and we've just had a phenomenal response since we put it up on YouTube. So thank you to all those that have watched the series and those that have shared it with others. We've had nothing but positive comments from those that have shared it with others. It was actually intended to take someone that knew nothing about biblical cosmology, literally from ground zero, and go from there and hopefully lead them to a point of understanding of what the Bible says, and to a point that they would not only know what the Bible says, but they would believe it. And for many of those in our church that were there when we went through the series on biblical cosmology, for most of them it was their first time hearing anything related to biblical cosmology or the things that are related to that. And it was amazing to watch over the course of that 8-week series how so many of the people that I minister to on a regular basis as the pastor of the church came from a point of not knowing anything about it to a point of knowing, understanding, and appreciating what the Bible says about biblical cosmology, and seeing the excitement on their faces as they began to see things that I had seen several years ago myself for the first time, but to see their eyes open and see them excited about what they were learning. And by the time the series was over, everyone had a firm grasp of what the Bible says, and the majority of them believe it to this day. It has been, I think, a help to others that have watched the series on YouTube. We've had many comments from viewers that have watched the series and then passed it on to others who were either on the fence about biblical cosmology or maybe knew nothing about it at all. And what we seem to be hearing is that those who have an open mind and an open heart about it, if they'll watch the series all the way from beginning to end, then they too usually come around to believing what the Bible says about cosmology too. I'm actually doing this particular video because we've been asked many times for me to come on camera personally and do some shorter videos about biblical cosmology. So this will be the first one of a series that hopefully we'll be able to do. I want to start by saying just a little bit about myself. I am the pastor at Pinnacle Baptist Church, and I also am the owner of KBN Television. We're the only television station here in Georgia between Atlanta and Macon. We reach about 250,000 viewers, and I've been the owner of the station now for about a decade and worked for the station as sales manager for about a decade before that. But God's been very good to me and to my family. He's blessed me, and I'm happy to use the TV station and my ministry at the church to be able to help share the truth with other folks about a lot of different things. I do want to ask you, if you're watching this video or if you've watched the series on biblical cosmology and it's been a blessing to you, I know everybody else you watch on YouTube asks you to do the same thing, and until recently I didn't ask anybody to do it, but I see now where it is a help, and it'll help others to see the videos on YouTube. If you'll hit the subscribe button, and then if you'll like this video and all the videos in the Biblical Cosmology series and any of the others on the channel that you might be willing to like, because the more you like them and the more people subscribe to the channel, the more people YouTube will put our videos in front of in the suggested videos. I know that YouTube changed their algorithms just a couple of years ago to try to hide these kinds of videos, but I think because of the scrutiny they've come under with Congress over the last few months, that might be beginning to change back a little bit to the way that it was previously. But the more you like our videos and the more people you help us get subscribed to the channel, the more people these videos will get in front of, and maybe they'll click on some of the videos and watch them for themselves as well. The video channel here on YouTube is the TV station's video channel, so you'll see a lot of commercials for some of our clients, So you can watch those or don't watch those. It's up to you. We basically put commercials from our clients up there for the sake of our clients to be able to preview their own commercials before they broadcast. But if you don't want to watch those, that's fine. But there are also a lot of sermons every Sunday morning. The Sunday morning sermon is put up online on YouTube. So there are lots of sermons on lots of different subjects. They're all from me and Pinnacle Baptist Church. So if you enjoy the things you've heard in the things you've seen and heard in the Biblical Cosmology series, chances are you'll probably enjoy some of those sermons too. I would encourage you to just give them a listen if you'd like to. And we have some exciting announcements coming up, I think, in just the next few months regarding all those things to do with Biblical Cosmology and those videos that are already up. But that brings me to our video today. Our video today, I have chosen a particular subject that is one of many things that totally destroys the secular cosmology model that's out there. The one that NASA teaches, Neil deGrasse Tyson teaches, all the talking heads of science teach. There are so many different things that totally destroy their model. And they jump through hoops to try to make them believable, but they're not. They go against real science. And I'm going to try to share a series of short videos, one subject at a time. The one that I've chosen for today is a subject that I haven't really seen discussed very much, even among those on YouTube that do subscribe to the belief in biblical cosmology. And so that's what we're going to tackle today. We're going to look at some things related to moss growing on the north side of trees. And I know you've probably grown up, you've heard the legends, the myths, the stories, the fables, whether they're true or not true, about moss growing on the north side of trees. Well, I want to tell you what the real science is and explain to you how moss growing on the north side of trees primarily is really a proof for biblical cosmology, for the flat earth model, and it totally destroys the secular cosmology model when you look at the true science behind it. Now, there are, of course, people for hundreds of years that have been using that notion that moss primarily grows on the north side of trees, at least here in the northern hemisphere where we are, to be able to find their way if they're out in the wilderness. This goes all the way back to when America was being explored, and the old saying is that moss is usually found on the north side of trees. So if you're lost, if you don't know which direction to go, if you know the direction you need to go, you can pretty much determine where north is, not just by the sun overhead as it goes overhead throughout the day, but particularly by looking at which side of trees has the most moss growing on it. Now, there actually is some truth to it, and there is some science behind it. It is not just an old wives' tale. It's legitimate. It's real. It does not mean that moss only grows on the north side of trees, however. There are other factors that figure into where moss grows on trees. Moss will grow on trees pretty much anywhere that it has a little bit of shade and the moisture that it needs and the other ingredients there. But for the most part, here in the northern hemisphere, moss will grow primarily on the north side of trees if all the other things are constant. If all the other things are the same on all the other sides of the tree, for example, trees aren't close together and there's more shade on the east, west, or south side than the north. If everything is equal, moss will prefer to grow on the north side of trees. Now I'm going to show you some pictures here that we took right here where I live. I have 12 beautiful acres on the river here in middle Georgia, and we affectionately call home here White Camellia Plantation. We have white camellias lining the driveway as you come into the property. This is home, but I've taken some pictures, a shot here on the property looking down towards the river, and you hopefully will be able to see that there is more moss that's growing on the north side of the trees, even in the pictures that we show. Not on every tree, but most of the trees in the picture have a preponderance of moss growing on the north side. Now, what's the reason for that? Well, it's because the moss prefers to stay away from sunshine. It prefers the shade instead of direct sunlight. And as a result, the side of the tree, you see our family cat has joined us here, but the moss is typically going to grow where there's more shade and less direct sunlight. Now, NASA, of course, says that the world is a spinning, whirling ball, spinning around like a top and whirling around the sun. We'll spend some other videos talking about the numbers behind those things and some of the other things related to those orbits and revolutions. But if you look at the secular model of cosmology, the fact that they say the earth is spinning and whirling around the sun, even when you take into account the number of degrees that they say the earth is tilted on its axis, which is the explanation for why they say we have different seasons of the year. It's also why some of them have said that's why there's more shade on the north side and moss grows more on the north side of trees. However, if you look at their model, none of that makes sense, because even with the earth tilted, with it spinning, and with it whirling around the sun, all things given, every single part of the ball, the spinning ball, should receive the exact same amount of sunlight. And there's no reason to say that the north side of trees would receive less sunlight than the south side of trees, because if sunlight is hitting the spinning ball, it's going to be evenly distributed. And even if the earth is tilted on its axis, well, part of the time it's going to be tilted away from the sun, and then part of the time as it spins around and whirls around, it's going to be tilted towards the sun. There really is no scientific basis for saying that there should be more shade on the north side based on the secular cosmology model. But if you look at the biblical cosmology model, it makes perfect sense, because as you see that the earth, the sun is rotating around and above the plane of the earth, it is certainly, it spends less time near the North Pole, which is at the center of biblical cosmology Earth. And the majority of the time, though, the rest of the year, it's getting further and further away from the center point of the biblical Earth. And it's going further and further toward the outside of that plane, that circular plane, towards Antarctica, what NASA calls the South Pole. And so the sun spends more time during the year on the south side of trees than it does on the north side of trees. It spends some time of the year on the north side, but it spends more time south of trees here in the northern hemisphere. Ironically, this also explains why in the southern hemisphere, trees receive more direct sunlight on the north side, and so trees in the southern hemisphere, especially the further south you get, why they're going to have more moss on the south side of trees, all things being equal. And so this is just a simple thing, and it's been used for hundreds of years. Some of the talking heads from NASA and the atheists and evolutionists on YouTube, even the amateurs that try to debunk biblical cosmology, they'll say that's just an old wives' tale. No, it really isn't. It really is true to some degree that moss prefers the north side of trees here in the northern hemisphere and the south side of trees in the southern hemisphere. So there really is some science to it, but it all supports biblical cosmology, the biblical earth model, not the secular cosmology model. So I know this is one thing among many that we're going to cover. This just happens to be one that I haven't really seen or heard anybody even talk about. but it fits perfectly with what we know to be true with the biblical cosmology model. Again, I want to thank you for watching this video. There'll be more to come. Some of them will be shorter, some of them might be longer, but I hope that this will be just one extra tool that you can send, and maybe it'll be short enough to get somebody's attention, and then maybe you can get them to watch the 8-part series on biblical cosmology. If you do go to the series on biblical cosmology that we have, I encourage you, whether you're watching it for the first time or sending it to someone else to watch for the first time, I encourage you to start with the first one and go sequentially all the way through. They're presented in the way they're presented on purpose, and I think it'll be a blessing to you if you'll do that. Again, please subscribe to the channel, and please hit the like button for this and any of the other videos on our channel that you're willing to hit. That'll do a whole lot in helping other people end up seeing these as suggested videos too. Thank you so much for all your support over the last few months watching the channel and helping the channel to grow so quickly in just a few months' time. Again, I'm Ray McBerry, pastor here at Pinnacle Baptist, and welcome to my home. We'll see you again on another video real soon.